Welcome to FinanceFeeds Podcasts. FinanceFeeds is the world's premier interactive Forex industry news source, providing the latest insights and current affairs from within the online trading industry worldwide. Enjoy our latest podcast episode. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me. My name is Nikolai Isayev. I'm the editor-in-chief of FinanceFeeds. Welcome to FinanceFeeds Podcasts. This is our first ever podcast, so we're very excited. Our first guest joining us today is Dmitri Galinov, who is founder and CEO of 24 Exchange. Dmitri, welcome. Thanks for joining us on our first ever podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to be the first.
Yes. So it's August right now. It's summer. I wanted to find out how your summer's been going. I think you are in Miami most of the time. I know it gets hot down there during the summer. How has summer been for you? How are you cooling? How are you keeping cool?
Miami. Yeah, I'm in Miami most of the year. It's beautiful down here. It's a little bit hot in the summer. I mean, we have air conditioning, obviously, and I spend a lot of time by the beach. I also travel a lot during the summer. I went to New York and London. I'm now in Connecticut, in our Connecticut office. We have offices in New York, London, Connecticut. Traveling and air conditioning and beach, it kind of cools me down.
Oh, nice. I'm actually in upstate New York myself, so I might be quite close to you in Connecticut. Whereabouts in Connecticut are you guys located?
We're in Stamford, Connecticut.
Oh, nice. It's about a 40-minute drive. 40-minute drive for me. Well, it's been hot up here as well, but it's definitely cooling down this week. So hopefully you will get to enjoy the weather here, much like you do in Miami. And I've been to Miami many times recently as well. You obviously know this better than I do, probably. There's been so many transplants in the last few years that have both companies and people who have migrated to the greater Miami area, so to say. The last time I was there, it seemed like there were so many people. Has that dissipated somewhat, or is Miami still the go-to destination for both tourists and professionals from different regions of the country?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see Miami slowing down at all. We do see more and more New Yorkers or like Northeasterns in California plates and people down there. As you know, there's a number of financial firms recently announced that they're moving. I think the big splash was obviously Citadel, among others. It's still Miami's influx of people still going strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Dmitri, before we get into like some personal questions that I wanted to ask you, I wanted to talk shop, as they say, a little bit. The last time you and I saw each other was at Trade Tech Effects conference in Miami in February. And the last time you and I spoke, I think that was around the time that certain financial firms had filed some applications with U.S. regulators for things like spot crypto ETFs. And I believe 24 Exchange's application for the U.S. equities exchange was already filed at that time as well. Obviously, it's been quite a few months since then. I've seen some of these ETF proposals that some firms have submitted. Some of these have been declined so far, and I wanted to get your take on sort of the situation as it's happening now. Has that changed the 24 Exchange's mindset in any way with respect to what you're trying to accomplish with crypto?
No, absolutely not. I just want to differentiate two things. 24 Exchange is a multi-asset platform. So we run foreign exchange, crypto, as well as you mentioned, we filed for U.S. Stock Exchange application. So our crypto trading and exchange is very different from the stock exchange that we filed in the U.S. We are domiciled in Bermuda for crypto trading, and we are licensed by Bermuda Monetary Authority. for exchange as well as for our broker. So we have 2 licenses from Bermuda Money Territory. And, our crypto is going very, very strong in that regard. Now, our exchange application is for trading U.S. stocks. That would include spot crypto ETFs if they would be approved by the time we go live. But if they're not approved, we still have another over 7,000 stocks to trade 24 hours. So we're very, very excited about that. So the updated application is that, and the mindset didn't change. SEC posted the application on their website, so we hopefully expect the license for the stock exchange this year. And I think just going back, the application for the exchange license and the spot crypto ETF application by other firms, they really two different things and really not affect each other or my thinking.
Oh, okay, understandable. And with your specific application for the exchange, since it's filing, what has some of the feedback been from perhaps your colleagues or friends in the industry, perhaps I don't know, media or anyone else? Because in looking at what you're trying to accomplish, it looks like a pretty game-changing service.
Absolutely. So since we filed the application, we talked to many clients of ours and friends, whether they're on broker dealer side, on the buy side, like big hedge funds and corporates, as well as other exchanges and brokers. And I think overall, everybody's super excited about 24/7 exchange trading. There is I think as the cryptocurrency will become more prevalent, there is a push for people to trade other things 24/7, because people looking at and cryptocurrency say, well, this guy's trading 24/7, why we can't trade stocks? And I think anybody that we talk to is super excited about us coming online.
Mm-hmm. Great. And with respect to NDF swaps and spot FX trading, right, that you guys obviously offer as well, that's part of 24 exchanges. I would say probably core services or products, right? How have those markets sort of expanded or changed over the last, let's say, 5 months since we last saw each other in February? I think I did see something in the news where you guys did execute a particular first-time trade with someone at some point after the February conference where we saw each other.
Yes, thank you for the question. Our FX actually in the last 5 months is doing very well. And we are posting our volumes on our website, 24exchange.net, but for NDFs. But in general, the FX volumes every quarter is higher than the previous one. We grow the volume. In terms of year-over-the-year growth, we doubled the FX volume versus previous year so far. And we still have a lot of clients to onboard. We are still relatively a new company. We were founded in 2019, so we still have many clients that are onboarding and trading FX. But FX is going very well. Obviously, the environment was also very good for foreign exchange with fluctuations in interest rates and in stock markets and in other markets. So certainly you've seen foreign exchange rate been fluctuating quite well as well. So all of this contributed to pretty good growth for our platform on FX.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And if we turn back to crypto a little bit, we're all obviously aware of the weakness in crypto asset prices across the board, right, in recent months. Some people have called it a crypto winter. right? I'm sure you've heard that in the news, or people referring to this. Do you agree with that kind of phrase or that kind of description in terms of what's going on, like crypto winter, or do you think maybe what's actually happening is sort of an optimistic time because there's obviously certain consolidation that takes place in the industry. We've seen it before with other markets, right? And this might be a time to learn valuable lessons for really all the participants of the crypto markets, and in terms of learning lessons for the future, so that this type of market can become a lot more integrated within global business, banking, and just society in general. Like, what do you think?
I mean, to me, this, well, I would call it crypto winter because, I mean, the asset prices went down pretty significantly. So, whatever you call it, I mean, it was significant depreciation. But I think, this depreciation of all these assets and, some obviously firms went out of business really were caused by leverage and, and really people taking a lot of credit risks without understanding it. And I think the positive thing coming from this experience is that now the firms are, becoming much more conservative. This is like really, reminds me of, remember the housing bust when the banks
Yes.
got super aggressive on real estate and, there was a bust. To me, it's like very similar situation here where people
Hmm.
got over leveraged or gave credit to and extended credit to some people that they shouldn't have and so forth and this is all right now it's correcting but for the crypto overall I think it's doing very very well and on the infrastructure side. And the way I see it, I see, there's big banks and buy side clients that's coming into crypto and they continuing to come. I mean, nothing is stopping them. The fact that, there was this credit deterioration and, the sell off based on that, they really didn't change institutional plans and they all going ahead with it and they're very very excited so to me the future for the crypto and usage of it within banks and organizations is very bright.
Hmm. And I'm sure you saw just this week, or was it last week, that I think BlackRock and Coinbase are going to be working together on the institutional side of
Yeah,
things.
you see
So,
that's very impressive.
Black,
Yes, absolutely,
yeah.
that's a huge step. I think they added Coinbase to Aladdin platform and this is all in the backdrop of the obviously Coinbase is the subject to multiple investigations and so forth and is the outcome somewhat of this crash but despite all the issues that various platforms having the institutions are still moving forward so that's a very very good sign.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think with what's happening with Coinbase and BlackRock, I would expect that there will be probably other players from the big banking side or private equity or institutional investing side who will try to or will want to partner with or collaborate with large crypto exchanges. Perhaps that's a business opportunity for 24 Exchange in the future in some way, shape, or
Absolutely. Yeah, we're
form.
looking forward to that. Well, I'm not sure if you were. We already have a number of banking partners. So Standard Charter is a big owner of our company and the huge partner. I think they're one of the first banks that will be trading crypto and crypto derivatives and offer various services. As well as J.P. Morgan is our holder. So I think we already have a number of banking and and Point 72 is our investor. So we have a lot of kind of institutional investors that already kind of supporting us across all the asset classes that we do. but we certainly would be looking for more partnerships and with institutions in the crypto space.
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe someone will be listening to this podcast and will want to reach out. Dmitri, I'm sure you are not hard to find with respect to shooting you guys an email at 24 Exchange and starting up a conversation. So I wanted to switch a little bit over to talk about Dmitri Galinov, the person. I know we talked shop, we talked about 24 Exchange, crypto. I want to find out more about Dmitri Galinov, the person, and your personal history. I wanted to ask a little bit about your upbringing, some of your cultural traits, and maybe some things that had an impact on you growing up, and then also through to your young years in terms of education, and then starting your career. We are both sort of immigrants from the former Soviet Union, so there's a little bit of commonality here. And I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about sort of your early life. Just from open sources and LinkedIn, I saw that I think you were born in Russia. I think somewhere in the Republic of Tatarstan. I guess what I wanted to know if my information is correct. Do you remember anything from your childhood, particularly from let's say sort of some cultural traits that you were exposed to as a child growing up in Soviet Union or Russia that had a certain positive impact on you as you went on further on in life in terms of going to school, going to university, and then working in the United States, starting your own businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Well, I was born in Russia, well, in USSR, in city of Kazan, and I attended the Finance and Economic Institute in Kazan. Before I moved to US at the age of 17.
Mm-hmm.
It's about an hour from Moscow. It has the 1.5 million people, but the most interesting, and it's really very similar to way kind of who are my grandparents and parents are, is Kazan is like a little Jerusalem. Well, it's not little. It's pretty decent, but in the sense where. If you look at the Kazan population, it has, about half of the populations are Russian, which is obviously Orthodox Christian. And, the other, almost half of the population are Tatars, who is predominantly Muslim population. Mm-hmm. And there is also, in Kazan at that time, there are a lot of Jews. And, for example, my grandmother was Ukrainian Jew. And the way it happened is because, during World War II, when the Germans came towards Moscow, a lot of Jews from Ukraine, they went inside Russia, inside USSR. And, this is how my grandmother, who was a Ukrainian Jew, met my grandfather, who was Tatar, and kind of they got, and at the end, I was born at sometime later. But, what's so interesting about Kazan is that all these people, from very different backgrounds, even Tatar language is different from Russian language, and, the religion. But, they all worked and operated together very peacefully and very efficiently. Like, this is what really strikes me about, that town, that we, during that time, you had, people, Russian original, Tatar original, Jewish original in various, management functions or important roles. And they were able to get there within the city, and in a very nice way. So it is the city where there's different cultures could truly coexist. And there is for example, if you go through Kazan city, you'll see huge amount of churches as well as huge amount of mosques. and yet people were working and still are working together very well, and promoting and everything. And that was similar kind of to my family, because I had, as I said previously, I had Jewish roots and Tatar roots, but also my mom was pure Russian, Orthodox Christian. So I truly kind of grew up in a mixed environment, and it really gave me kind of a view on various perspectives on life, and certainly helped me to deal with all kinds of people in the future.
Mm-hmm. And as you said just now, what I was going to say is that because you're exposed to different religions and different cultures, because I venture to guess there is, Tatar culture, it has its own specifics, as opposed to Russian culture, or even if we could call it Soviet culture, right? Because again, we both lived in it, right? So we both understand that there's a certain element of Sovietness. I don't know if that's actually a word, but the exposure to all of these different languages, cultures, religions kind of helped you be able to communicate with really anybody, understand different people's sort of concerns, right?
Yes.
From a cultural perspective, religious perspective, and things like that, right?
Absolutely. That was a huge help for me, to be raised in such environment, in such city.
Mm-hmm. Great. And in terms of education, and this is something I experienced as a child, I would venture to guess you did as well. Soviet education system, very heavily focused on mathematics, and I would say natural sciences.
Yes.
And physical sciences. Did you also experience that in sort of early years in school? And did that influence your future education, like let's say at university, further down the line when you moved to the United States?
Absolutely. My Russian math education helped me significantly, and Russia is very strong, on getting math and physical science young people prepared. I'll give you an example, how strong it was. So I went, as I said before, to Kazan Finance Institute. And at the USSR, the way it worked, I'm not sure if you remember that once you graduate high school, either you go to university or you go to Russian army for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, in Russian army, at that time, it wasn't paid. It's basically free service. And, there are a lot of young and educated people that wanted to continue their, education. They not necessarily wanted to go to the army. So what ended up happening is it created a huge demand to get into a school or a college in Russia. And so I remember that when you have to do entry exam into the Finance and Economic Institute at my time, you had to take 3 tests, which is math, geography, and English. In Russian. In the Russian language. There's about, for each place in the university, I think there was about 13 or 14 applicants. So it was super competitive. But if you pass a math on A, so if you take a math exam, upon entry exam, and you get an A, you basically get in automatically. So
Mm-hmm.
there are 2 people. I think there is 3,000 people that applied when I applied, and there is 2 people that got an A on math test, and I was one of them. So it it certainly helped me to go into get into the university, and then certainly as I moved from Russia to United States, and I moved to university in New York City. And I decided to pursue the career on Wall Street and finance. certainly math was the key there. And actually, one of my first internships, before I even could speak English very well, I was working for a very large hedge fund in Midtown, doing quantitative analysis of stock trades.
Mm-hmm.
So math, helped me tremendously in my life, and especially in my career on Wall Street.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that people even um, uh, didn't pay attention as much to my English or other skills because I was pretty new to the country, but they were really impressed by my math skills, and I was able, to basically move up pretty quickly with my career because of that. Despite the fact that I'm not a native speaker of English.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Of course. And a follow-up question on the math topic. Again, something that I experienced and was wondering if you did as well. Having transitioned from Russian school or institute to university, like what I found is that I had a bit of a problem adjusting. On the one hand, everything is taught and explained to you in English. Some of the terms are different from the ones that we learned obviously in the Russian language when we learned it in the Soviet Union. And that was one thing. And the second thing was really the level of advancement I would get, I guess, or however to call it. Basically, what I experienced is something that I was already learning or had learned in, let's say, 10th grade. I was then presented with the same information in college, at university in the United States, and I found that to be a little bit awkward because I said, well, this is something that I already know. So why do I have to study this again? I understand it's in a different language. Did you experience that as well? Or did you have a different sort of a different experience in college in the US?
Well, I mean, the college in US, the math was pretty easy for me. Yes, I mean, I came in, and that really it was super versus where the courses, math courses that I took in Kazan, in the United States, that comparatively they were pretty easy. And I think one of the reasons actually for that, and I observed it with my kids, as my kids growing up, what I found, because obviously I was doing math homework with my kids here, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just remembering how they taught us in Kazan, in the USSR. So what I figure out is that here they take the school takes, let's say, 10 steps to explain a particular concept, and in Russia they would take like 3 steps, and it's just the program. In the United States, it's more stretched out than in Russia. It's more concentrated math program, and so that's where you end up when you end up finishing high school or college courses. You kind of the same level that is like eighth grader in USSR.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is the difference. Is just the way math program in America is just a little bit stretched out versus Russia.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, your kids. Do you speak Russian with your children as a second language? I know. It's another question from being an immigrant these days. Certain parents kind of try to continue on that sort of lineage and cultural sort of familiarity with their children. Some don't. Just wondering if that's something that you do.
Yes, absolutely. Look, we are a big proponent of multi-language skill. I think it's very, very good for children as well. To learn various intricacies. So yes, I speak English and Russian to them. They understand and speak both. And also, given that we're in Miami, They also speaking and learning Spanish.
Hmm.
Since Miami, it's mostly Spanish speaking area. So my kids actually know three languages.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. Absolutely. Dmitry, we talked a little bit about your background and history. You moved to New York, you went to university, you did some work at Credit Suisse. I know that. And after that, you had launched a Fast Match. I guess my question is, what led you to launch Fast Match right at the time that you did? Um, and was it really based on the right place and the right time, and also your experience at working at, like you said, you were an intern at a hedge fund, Credit Suisse, perhaps other companies you had worked at, and then again also maybe again your wealth of knowledge and education based on your background, sort of, is that something that sort of led you to have a thought in your head like, hey, I could do this better, or nobody's doing this, I should try to do this. Um, and that's how Fast Match came about. I guess that's the question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, I've been in New York for 25 years and basically working at Credit Suisse. And I think how they came Fast Match about, there are a couple of things. One is that I've been very very successful in my career, and I got to the point where I really build enough network and knowledge and respect in the industry that I felt that I could go and launch something and run something on my own. I felt that working for great companies through my career up to that point prepared me to do. It's a very big step, to go and do something on your own versus to work for established company and very secure and so forth. So that's one thing. So one thing I wanted to go and do it on my own. The second bit is at that time when I was launching Fast Match, which was like 2011. Basically, what was happening is uh, there are a lot of articles were about foreign exchange market and quality of execution. And there's, if you recall, there are some lawsuits where the big buy side clients sued the banks, saying, "Look, they're charging us very unreasonable rate for FX," and there are a lot of press. And so my background before Fast Match really was in U.S. equities. So I spent 20 years in U.S. equities, and I and U.S. equities market has been very regulated, very fast. There are a lot of exchanges, very efficient. And when I opened the Wall Street Journal and I start reading, information about the foreign exchange market and what's going on, I very quickly understood it was, even though it has been the biggest market in the world, it was not as regulated or efficient or electronic by any means, or transparent. So, for example, exchanges at that time, they wouldn't publish their fee schedule, they wouldn't publish their volumes. They, many platforms would not even publish their rules, how they operate. So that's how kind of Fast Match came in mind. I said, well, look, what if we take equities experience that I have and take a matching engine that's fast and create a very transparent, system where you'll see everything on the website, what the pricing is, basically very organized, transparent system, and apply it to foreign exchange. And that's kind of how Fast Match was born. And since then, it did very, very well. I sold the company 4 years later to Euronext, and they rebranded it to Euronext FX, and I think they're still doing very well with that company.
Hmm. Great. It's a very interesting. It's a very interesting story. So you said 25 years you lived in New York. What made you pick up and move to Florida?
COVID.
Ah, okay, okay,
So
I
yeah,
see.
so that's the short answer. So You know, I look. COVID changed a lot of things. So, before COVID in the financial industry, and in many other industries, people were accustomed when doing business to see each other in person, right? Personal
Hmm. Hmm.
meetings, coffee, and so forth. Since COVID hit, people are much more comfortable with remote and Zoom and stuff like that. So that enabled me to live anywhere I wanted. And I started thinking, well, where do I want to live? And what attracted me about Florida were the good weather, low taxes. I mean, they have no state tax, and pretty good infrastructure. I mean, in terms of infrastructure, I'm talking about, the airports and restaurants and, Ubers and the taxis and everything. So to me, Miami like kind of culminated all these different things. And because of COVID, I could move. And so what happened is as soon
Hmm.
as we, could get on a plane, just went to Florida and saw three houses and bought one. And we moved
Hmm.
within 2 months with my family and never looked back.
Hmm. I was just sort of under the impression that you had actually moved to Florida a few years before COVID. That's why I had asked. But if that did happen, as a result of COVID, that's completely obviously understandable. But Dmitry, you know how I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation that specifically Miami, seems to have been quote unquote overrun with so many people that have transplanted. Do you still feel the same about Miami and Florida as you did then, as you do now? Or, I mean, is it manageable? It seems to me there's like so much traffic these days on all the main thoroughfares in Florida or in Miami.
Yes,
you know?
it is. It's a very good question. I mean, certainly, look, the influx of people. It's not that easy to widen the road, right? So Miami certainly
Hmm.
did not expect that COVID is going to hit and all these people are going to rush to that state. To me, it's still manageable. It's still manageable. It did get harder. So the traffic got heavier, as well as things like services. So, for example, let's say if you want to go to a doctor, right? Like there is a longer wait line. There's more people. It's just because there are more people in the state, and with more people coming. But I do see that Miami is investing very significant amount of money into growing the infrastructure. They if I'm not sure if you drove around Miami, there is a lot of work is going on in terms of adding highways and and so forth to ease up the traffic. So I'm sure that the government recognizes what's going on, and it's just the question is how quickly they can do it, because obviously it takes a long time. But I'm still very bullish on it.
Hmm.
I think we're going to continue seeing people coming there. It just
Hmm.
everything takes time because let's say if your family member moved, but maybe you cannot move right away, but you want to, or someone has parents or whatever certain engagements, and over time though that those engagements disappear or people can move. So I think this trend will continue, and I think the Miami will be ready for it.
Hmm. And does 24 Exchange do any business in Florida? So you mentioned, Connecticut, London. You have offices. Do you have an office in Miami or Florida as well? And if not, do you? Is that something that you've thought about doing in the near
Yeah,
future?
we have an office in Miami. We opened an office in Coral Gables, which is a beautiful area of Miami. It's South Miami,
Hmm.
south of Miami. And we have a few people in the office already every day. The Miami office is not as big as our New York, London, or London office, or Connecticut office is the smallest office. but he
Hmm.
does head up our stock exchange, obviously. So that's where the stock exchange is registered, and we are
Hmm.
as we launch the stock exchange and we grow, we do see the Miami office expand.
Hmm. And do you find that when you were staffing the Miami office, I'm not sure, perhaps you brought over existing employees from other locations. But if you did hire locally, is Florida? Does Florida have like a good caliber of candidates specific to the financial industry and maybe specific to our little niche of like FX, crypto, and all the other derivative products that we're all familiar with?
Yes, unfortunately, a good question. So unfortunately, I don't think Florida has a great amount of people that, for our industry, which is, more like technology, like programmers or, like finance people, FX people.
Hmm.
So the people that work for our office in Miami are from, we brought them from other areas, from New York and Connecticut, and so forth. And the new people that obviously arrive, we the people that we look to hire, they all coming from like Chicago or New York or Boston or somewhere, not unfortunately not from Miami. And we I looked at actually I looked at into recruiting in local universities. Unfortunately, we the local universities, they're not capable to produce the IT people, or like math people, finance people, because historically they like that's not what they are concentrating on. They were more concentrating
Hmm.
on like, for example, hotel management, market, like into more kind of different things that Miami was, big tourist hub and, an international hub before. But in terms of really like finance and technologists for Wall Street, you know, the COVID and, this influx happened too suddenly for them to catch up. I'm sure
Hmm.
that once they see, and they're already seeing all these financial companies moving to Miami, I'm sure that they will introduce new courses and do it. But so far, we got people from outside. But because people want to go to Miami, we found a lot of willing people that want to go there and work there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting because again, that was the sort of the idea that came to my mind is perhaps there's not enough qualified people yet for kind of the for our industry. So also related to Miami, on your LinkedIn profile picture, it's you on a boat dock with a cigar. Um, so the question for Dmitri is, how does Dmitri unwind? Typically unwind after a long busy week. How do you decompress and relax in a city? In a city or area that, frankly, has so many vices.
Yes,
To put it bluntly.
absolutely. Well, look, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not as exciting on the weekend as Miami is. But the way I invite, I like to smoke a cigar here and there with my friends outside. It's beautiful outside. So a lot of people sitting outside, even in the middle of the winter. It's warm over there, so you can enjoy good sun weather and have food and drink or a cigar outside. So that's one way. Another way, I like fishing a lot, and the fishing, the pier that the photo is on is a fishing pier. So I
Hmm.
actually go out fishing with my friends, but mostly the way I really, and that's another reason I moved to Miami. Miami has a beautiful ocean, so I try to enjoy it as much as possible, whether go fishing, going to the beach, just walking around the beach with my kids and my dogs, or going just on the boat with my friends. So I'm really kind of attracted to the ocean, and all my activities in terms of
Hmm.
relaxing is involving ocean somehow.
They're all
Very
aquatic
yes,
activities.
yes, absolutely.
That's great. That's awesome. So I guess one of the other questions, again, it's sort of a cultural question. We all have these devices these days. We have iPhones and iPads, and we have access to digital content everywhere, right? Video, audio, and things like that. Music is something that I think has been. I would argue probably or venture to guess that it's been a part of your life since growing up in the Soviet Union. Um, I guess the question is, what kind of music does Dmitri like to listen to? And a small comment, when we saw each other last at Trade Tech Effects, you guys had put on a really cool sort of night party event at that conference. And what I got from it is that Dmitri seems to be also kind of like a electronic dance music connoisseur in a sense,
Yes, yes.
maybe. So what are sort of your musical influences, and do you use music kind of like a lot of young people use music today? They're listening to music when they're working, before they go to bed. When they wake up, they all have these different playlists that they have for different moods and things like that. Does Dmitri do the same? Kind of, what's been your musical influences? Since your childhood and up to now.
Yes. So yes, I am electronic music friend and big fan. And basically, I did it I liked it from very beginning, from my early childhood. So
Hmm.
I listen to electronic music when I drive, during the drive, or during, like, when I'm swimming. Let's say if I'm swimming the pool, I put the music, on the speaker. Um,
Hmm.
I don't like working with music on, or doing certain things. I think it's a little bit distracting. But
Hmm.
I do enjoy electronic music because it does energize me. I also listen a little bit, stuff like 80s or classic rock, but that's all my wife. So my wife puts it on, and I listen to it a little bit. But personally, I'm a big fan of electronic music. That's why you probably, you like our party at Live in Miami, which is a big nightclub, and they have really really good DJ. Even local DJ there is amazing. We're very very happy with that club, and entertaining clients that way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the reason why I was so impressed is because many years ago, before my professional career, I was actually a small time DJ in New York. So electronic dance music and other genres of electronic music, including hip hop and all that, are very very familiar to me. So that's why I was pleasantly surprised, and also was curious to find out, kind of what's the how big is the influence for Dmitry. So we mentioned Trade Tech FX. Trade Tech FX has announced that they will be doing another conference early next year in February. This time, I believe, in Fort Lauderdale, a little bit north of Miami. Should we expect a sort of a big presence from 24 Exchange at next year's Trade Tech FX, similar to what we saw this year?
Yes, of course. Well, actually, there is a big Trade Tech FX Amsterdam that's going in Europe in September, and we have a number of people from 24 Exchange coming to Amsterdam,
Hmm.
which usually going to be a good event, as well as obviously in Florida, in Fort, I think it's in Hollywood, Florida, when they're gonna hold the US one for next year. Yeah, absolutely, we'll have the presence.
Hmm.
I don't think we're gonna be doing the club though, because it's too far. from Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
but we will find entertaining places around Hollywood to to have fun with our clients. And you
Yeah, yeah.
certainly will be invited to all the activities.
Thanks. I mean, I wasn't. That wasn't no way of me trying to invite myself to your networking events. I wanted to ask you. I don't think Finance Feeds will have an opportunity to attend the Amsterdam event. We do know about it, the European version of Trade Tech FX. In your experience, you've obviously attended both the European and the US versions. Would you say they're both on par in terms of the networking? The sort of the networking opportunities there and the speakers and presenters that usually attend, or is there any sort of difference that you can see between the U.S. and the European events?
I think they're on par. And there is slight in terms of quality and the level of people that attending is speaking, they're on par. But in terms
Mm-hmm.
of the atmosphere, so European is more kind of local. So you have a lot of European, buy side and sell side guys, like very, from, all over the Europe coming there. Now, US one,
Mm-hmm.
it's because it's so far, right, from Europe and and Asia. You'll have kind of more representation from the bigger global organizations from bigger countries. Like you wouldn't have a smaller you would rarely see a lot of smaller European countries represented um, in the US one. Because it's just
Mm-hmm.
so distant. And I think they're both great ones, where the European one is more obviously European, and the US one is more kind of high level, where people from all over the world come. But both of them are excellent.
Mm-hmm. Great, awesome. Well, we wish you best of luck at the Amsterdam show, and hopefully we will see you in Florida in February of next year, if not before then. Dmitri, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to speak with me today and being part of our first ever podcast experience for Finance Feeds. I hope to see you very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and all the best of luck with the equities exchange that you are expecting to launch and everything else for 24.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good luck with your podcast, and we're looking forward to see you soon. Take
Thanks,
care.
Dmitri.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye. Thanks for listening to our latest Finance Feeds podcast episode. For sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest, please email us at info@financefeeds.com.